And then they started going viral pretty much immediately. I got the lowest score in the class, quit my job at Amazon. I've really been at that rock bottom. The reason these videos do well is because they...
Varun, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Of course, it's great to be here, man.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously I want to dive into all the different skits you do and the type of content you make, but I'm wondering first about your background. So obviously you grew up in Michigan, feature UMich a lot in all your videos. I'm just curious, in terms of your background, having immigrant parents, was it always engineer, lawyer, doctor, or bust, or what did you sort of have in store in your plans when growing up?
That's a great question. I think my story is very unique. So I did have two immigrant parents who worked in STEM, and I think they obviously envisioned for both me and my sister that we would go into some kind of STEM career, some kind of stable STEM career, right? But simultaneously, my parents are also both very like creative people. Like they're both musicians and they both love the arts in general. And I think I always had that influence in my household as well. So as a kid, I loved making videos like for myself and with my friends. I played music throughout all of my schooling. And so I always knew I wanted the arts to be part of my life in some way, shape, or form. I just didn't know what it would really look like. And I think once I got to college, I think the focus was definitely just get a good degree, get a good job. You know how that goes. I think once I left college, I think that was when I started to have a little more freedom, I guess, just kind of supporting myself, having that, decent job. I started to kind of realize, I can kind of do what I want now, and started thinking back on some of those things I loved doing as a kid. Something I always dreamed of doing as a kid was making videos and having a YouTube channel and all this stuff. And very recently, I've started to kind of morph my initial career plans into, hey, maybe I could do this dream of mine full time one day. Um, so yes, I had the influence of, um, the, go get a stable job first, but I also have very supportive parents who are like, you're actually pretty good at this stuff, and maybe you could do your own thing with that one day too. So I'm very lucky that I got to have both influences.
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like that's maybe not as common as we would
Yeah.
see
Uh
for
huh.
our backgrounds, but yeah. I'm actually curious, as you mentioned, going through college, trying to get a stable job, and you expand a lot in your like, YouTube videos about actually struggling throughout college. But I'm wondering, maybe for the audience, could you share a bit? Like, it wasn't, your story is not actually the easy 4.0 GPA, get all the FANG jobs. I'm just wondering, could you share a bit about like your time in like UMich CS?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess when I got to Michigan, I was enrolled in the engineering school, and I had an idea that I wanted to work in tech. I think my reasoning was maybe not the same as a lot of people at these big schools. I think I generally liked that one programming class I took in high school, and I thought working in tech just kind of looked cool based on some movies. And I think I saw like the internship with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson. And I was like, that looks cool. Like, that looks like I never really saw myself working at a like very like dress up every day kind of job. And so tech seemed like, okay, well that looks like a slightly more fun version of it. So, and I'm good at math and science. So I think comp sci is the way to go. Um, and I guess I had the rude awakening that it was like a lot harder than I expected it to be. And I didn't really get the same level of preparation at the time growing up in Michigan that maybe a lot of kids from like the Bay Area, for example, might get much earlier. So I struggled a lot with the difficulty of the curriculum. I don't think I was a bad technically, so to speak, but I think I just struggled to like succeed in the classroom. Um, I do think a lot of that was probably also because it was such a big school. It's really hard to get the support that you need. I think I was someone who always benefited from asking a lot of questions, working one on one with teachers, etc. So I struggled in the classroom, and then this kind of made it harder to get like a lot of options for internships because like I mentioned in that video, like a lot of employers happen to care, but the employers that didn't care happened to be the FANG companies. So I think sophomore junior year I was kind of like, okay, I have to get a job at one of those companies. Like there's no other option. Um, so I did what everyone else did. I grinded on the leak code and I did all that stuff. And I secured an internship at Amazon. Then I went to work there full time. And that was a whole separate thing. I'll probably make another YouTube video about ranting about. But I got the job. I'm really glad I got the job and went to work there. Um, and yeah, I think the struggle in the classroom definitely did light a fire in me and motivate me to like go get like the best of the best kind of job, so to speak. So, um, looking back, I think everything happens for a reason. So, I'm happy things worked out the way they did. Did it close some doors? Sure, but they were probably not the doors I wanted to go through anyway. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I just want to highlight, like, as a creator in tech, I think it's very refreshing for you to be so like transparent and like vulnerable about struggling, because it's very common to see like different videos of these guys who are just like cracked since high school, right? Just talking about like effortless perfection. But obviously, with your video going through all your different courses that you took at UMich, definitely I've related to a lot of it. Like, hey, some classes we just barely pass, right? And
Yeah.
honestly, at the end of the day, that might be enough. But
Yeah, I mean, I will never forget like that semester I failed score in the class on the final exam. Like, when they put the stats, like the standard deviation, I had the min score. That was me. I got like a 30 something percent or something. So, like, it doesn't get much worse than that. So, I've really been at that rock bottom academically. So, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but it's trying to expand more, as you say, like mentioning like definitely a support system is very key. And you did mention this in one of your previous skits, but I'm wondering if you wanted to explore a bit about when you were in your Theta Tau presidency, because I'm sure
Yeah.
that played a big part into your college experience and like inspiration for different skits you've done.
Oh yeah, definitely. I joined that second semester of sophomore year, and and then I got pretty involved right away. And it was around the time I was starting to my grades were starting to dip a little bit. I was simultaneously like, oh, like Theta Tau. That's something I like community. I like contributing to community and leadership, and I think that group recognized that in me. And then I was secretary second semester of junior year. And I think having that as a way to keep myself busy and manage my time really helped academically. But then also, like you mentioned, the support system was huge. I think one, having people to like study for classes with, study for interviews with, and then just like have friends who were in the same classes and just even just to like vent about it. And just some of those people became my best friends to this day. So um I'm super super grateful for that. I continued to become president, or as they call it, regent of that chapter. um that was really fun, and I feel like I got to explore a lot of skills that you don't really get to explore as an engineer just doing classes. I got to help with, again, like building community and resolving conflict and leadership and marketing and finance and all this stuff you don't really think about. I think it prepared me for corporate really well, and definitely prepared me for doing my own thing now too. So, um, yeah, shout out Theta Tau. That was just the best experience I could ever ask for. Yeah.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with you in the sense that the student clubs, like, they give us the best people to work with and pass the classes with. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely have that experience.
Are you in any yourself, or were you in any in
There was
school?
a startup club called Lava Lab at USC.
Okay.
That was my go-to. All
Did you
my
guys did you guys have Theta Tau at
yeah,
USC?
I had
Okay.
a lot of good friends inside, but
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
so anyway, you started posting skits and content on TikTok in 2021.
Yeah.
Obviously, starting with the typical type of tech related skits. But I'm wondering, and obviously over time evolving into what I guess your brand Strokify is now. But I'm wondering what was sort of the original motivation and inspiration behind those first skits.
Yeah, I think that was 2021. I was 25. That was like the second year of COVID, I guess. And I think it was after I had quit my job at Amazon. It was a few months into having quit, and I was doing nothing at the time. I had a lot of free time, and I kind of started to like work part time as well. But I had a lot of free time, and I was just hanging out with my buddies back home. I was in Michigan, and we were just like, hey, like let's check this TikTok thing out, and it starts serving you up videos of like people who look like you. And so I'm sort of discovering this thing called brown TikTok. And after observing some of these videos, a lot of the jokes are like making fun of our parents and things like that, right? Which is very classic. But we were like, we got to make some jokes about like people our age, like no one's really making fun of like Indian American youth. So after cracking many jokes amongst ourselves, I was just like, wait, I make videos. I can make videos. I can do that. I'm going to make that. I'm going to make a few videos about that. And then they started going viral pretty much immediately. And so I kind of carried on with that theme and that niche for probably 6, 7 months. And I think that really set my foundation. And it was super fun. And yeah, I think even to this day, I still, from those videos, get recognized by Indian people in public a lot. Like, I think it's really nice to know, like, well, most of my community has my back. I know maybe some people didn't like them, but, and that was actually why I started to kind of pivot into corporate, because I started to realize, okay, like, I can't really speak to the full Indian American experience. I don't think I'm necessarily the expert on this, because like my experience might not be someone else's experience, and I don't want to misrepresent people. But I knew I had a lot to say about corporate. Like during those COVID years, so much ranting about the Amazon years and all this other stuff. So I kind of started pivoting into more corporate type stuff. Um, and then I think for that next year, I was doing that and still kind of figuring my niche out a little bit. I'd experiment with other kinds of skits, reviewing food. I still do mix it up every now and then, but I was kind of figuring it out a little bit. Then I took a break in like late 2022 to last summer. So like over 6 months break. I was like kind of I just was getting burnt out by scrolling on TikTok and creating, and I thought a break could help. Um, and then last summer, I got recognized by some dude at a coffee shop, and he was like, "Hey, man, you got to start posting again. I've been waiting for your videos." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe I should." Uh, and then I jumped right back into the corporate stuff, and it just immediately started getting traction again. Um, and then I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good at this. I should keep doing this again." And then over the last couple of years, all this startup stuff that's been happening with layoffs and just all this bad tech stuff that's been happening that I even personally experienced, I'm like, there is definitely an audience for this, and like I should lean into this a little bit more. And then that's how the Strokify brand started. I just kind of, as a joke, mentioned that in the video. People thought it was hilarious, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna milk that. I'm just gonna make that like it's a great vehicle to talk about and make fun of tech, as opposed to naming specific employers. I can just make this my vehicle for storytelling. So that's kind of what I'm running with now. And I still do think I would love to expand beyond tech stuff, as I try to sometimes, but the tech market is just very strong and very engaged. And there's always something to talk about. And I really do enjoy talking about it. So yeah, that's just kind of my thing now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I really appreciate you taking me through that whole journey. I just sort of agree. Like, I mean, the tech market it is like a little bit saturated, but there's always something to talk about, and the viewership is definitely there. Like the algorithm
Yeah.
pushes those videos, and I guess I'm um, curious on your view in more like a meta sense in terms of, let's say, cross-posting videos. Obviously, creators nowadays, we post the same videos to, let's say, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram Reels. How do
Hmm.
you see like a performance on the different platforms, or do you see at all any sort of like maybe this type of video performs better on Instagram but not as well on the other platforms? How do you think about that?
Yeah, so I'm very new to the whole like cross posting and distribution game, so to speak. And I have noticed some differences in what performs well on one versus the other. Right now, I'm just posting the same exact kind of video on both. I think Instagram, one thing I've noticed is it takes a little longer for the video to blow up. It takes maybe a couple days. Um, I feel like Instagram viewers are more of them, more Instagram accounts are tied to people's names and identities. So I think the more edgy stuff, like people are less willing to comment and engage with on Instagram. Whereas TikTok, a lot of people are anonymous, almost like Reddit. So people will just like say whatever. And then that's another thing. I feel like the tone of engagement is very different. Like Instagram is where you'll get the people who are like I think wholesome content or like just anything that's a little more mature, I guess, like is going to do better on Insta because there's more people like a little bit older who are like going to type a paragraph who are like, I found this very relatable. Whereas like TikTok, it's just like a bunch of kids who are like, meh, 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 like they just say whatever they want. There's no filter. So that's one thing I've noticed, but I'm still figuring it out too. Like I have not figured out the science of which platform to do what on. Yeah, it's so confusing, and I feel like it's always changing too.
Yeah, for sure. Just especially thinking about how many engineers are employed, like working on the platforms, and us ourselves, like obviously just posting, trying to sort of reverse engineer it, but at the same time realizing how many different inputs there are is
Yeah,
pretty interesting. But I guess that sort of segues into my next question: is I guess what's your sort of intuition and feeling for certain videos performance? Because depending on different topics, I'm wondering like some of your most viral videos, I guess, do fit a certain, let's say on Instagram at least, do fit certain stereotypes or themes, right? Especially for series like, oh, a coworker tries Indian food for the first time. And
mhm.
I think that's the first video I found from you because and that one just blew up.
Okay.
And um, don't want to say just that sort of video, I guess it does have that sort of cross platform. A lot of people can relate to it. A lot of people can find it funny, even if they don't necessarily
Yeah,
identify. But I'm wondering when you're in like the process, editing, ideating, editing, uploading, what's your sort of intuition for a
yeah.
video's performance?
So that video is interesting because that was actually part of a longer skit that I put on TikTok 2 months before. And maybe it got like 500,000 on TikTok. And everyone on TikTok was like, dude, this skit went in like five different directions, but like it was still really good. And then for Instagram, I was like, let me try like chopping it up a little bit. Um, so that specific part was just like the beginning of that video. But um when I was making that skit, I would say the the intuition is very. It's just like when I mean, I would say I have an edgy sense of humor, and I I really like to talk about things that people don't like talking about, like race, for example. Like that's very important to me. Is like talking about how these themes intersect in the workplace, and I think what I'm starting to realize over time is like the reason that video, or maybe the video where I'm at the Amazon Go store, like I think the reason these videos do well is because they really expertfully like cross multiple worlds. Like there's the humor about like, okay, let's make jokes about like racism and Indian experiences. And then we're also working in tech, but then tech is also corporate. And then like it's crossing multiple worlds. And I think the Amazon video, it's like tech news, current events, Indian, racism, whatever, like software engineer with the Sev one joke, right? Like it crosses so many crosses so many worlds and it like pulls them together really well. So now also that's my thing. I don't know, like I'm sure if you asked a different creator, they'd have a different answer because not everyone tries to go for things like that. But I feel like that's my personal strength is like I've lived in all of these worlds before, and I feel like crossing them together and delivering some really edgy, almost hot take on it through a skit is what's able to get me good traction. And then usually when I look back on a video that didn't do so well, I can almost always point back and say, oh, yeah, maybe that was a little more of a zoomed in scenario that maybe not everyone could understand. But it's really those videos that just like pull all these worlds together. I think that's what is going to pop.
Yeah, no, for sure. I also enjoy. I like the way you explained that. But at the same time, I guess maybe just personally, I do find it very interesting that some of your most niche content also has like the highest engagement, right? Like some of your certain videos about, let's say, talking about the offshore engineering team. Obviously, you got to work in tech and specifically relate, have that experience to understand. But definitely for that sort of audience, like myself and other like techies, like we get the humor instantly. But at the same time, as you mentioned, for it to really go viral, it needs to.
Yeah. I mean, I think that kind of thing, like I said, so it's like bringing multiple audiences. So that's the quantity aspect. And then the quality aspect is also really important. I think the offshore thing, that's another, I feel like that's a moat I'm building for myself, is I don't think anyone is talking about that period. So I feel like that is something that just like, because one, because people have never seen it on Instagram before, and two, like, because I think I do the acting and all that stuff well and throw in those good edgy jokes. I think the quality is it just hits really hard. I think sometimes when I'm doing these niche videos, I think I may sacrifice getting hundreds of thousands of followers overnight. Like I feel like my growth has been very linear and steady, but I think hitting the niche hard has allowed me to build a very strong community. And I think that's like paramount for my success. I think that's like my secret sauce is my community I've been building. So I think that also helps a lot too. Whatever I post, people are going to show up for it now. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, for sure. I feel like that's sort of like almost like a startup mindset, right? Like it's better to have like 100 diehard fans than like a
Yeah,
lot of like just people who are.
totally.
Yeah, I also, I guess you sort of mentioned it here, but I'm curious into like your creative process in terms
Yeah.
of um just I'm wondering if you could talk me through like from ideation until like uploading. What's
Hmm.
the process for like how detailed do you go in terms of do you talk with friends about different punchlines? Do you sort of have like a draft version that you send over or just listen to yourself? What's your process?
Yeah, it's changed a lot over time. I would say when I first started, it would always start like with me and my buddies, and we'd just be like joking about something, and I'm like, I'm making a TikTok about that, and then I would just like maybe write a few notes, and then I would just like make it the next day and post it right away. As I have wanted to start like growing and taking it more seriously, I've kind of started to discipline myself a little more around like sitting down and writing and getting in a better cadence of that. So now it's just a little more organized. So I have like my Notion where I have my list of ideas for certain topics or whatever. And then um, every time I come up with something, I throw it in there. And then if I feel like there's some I want to do very soon, I'll try to at the beginning of a week, I'll be like, okay, I want to hit these couple this week. Because now I'm kind of introducing plot to my skits. So I do have this almost like order of videos I want to make. But so now what it looks like is like pretty much every Sunday, Monday, I'll look at like my list and be like, okay, I want to hit these couple this week. And then the night before, I will just start writing it. I'll try to sit down and I've gotten in a good rhythm now of forcing myself to get in the creative headspace and just start writing. Um, and so I'll write as much of a script as I can. I try not to be too prescriptive because then, like, once the next morning, like, get into GarageBand where I'm like recording the actual like skit. Sometimes when I'm doing that, I just come up with some of my best punchlines. It's just like a little freestyle. So um, So I try to leave room for that as well. And then right after I make that, I just record it and then I edit it in CapCut and then I post it. Um, so yeah, I try to be very quick with that. I don't like to leave videos sitting in the vault for too long. Another thing, like you mentioned about coming up with punchlines and stuff, I still like love to bring my friends into everything. So like a lot of times when it comes to coming up with ideas, sometimes it's either just from my own head, and a lot of them are also just from talking to friends and making jokes with them. Like for example, the whole like Kamal Mang thing, like that is like a product of my friend group. That is something we've been saying for years, and I just started saying it in skits randomly, and then people were like, "Oh, we love that." I'm like, I can do more of that, and then like yeah, now that's like kind of my thing. So a lot of it still does come from my real life too.
No, yeah, for sure. I think that's great. I think especially the way you mention it, from sort of having like at least a base of like a notion, so you have a rough outline. But as you mentioned, sometimes in the moment itself, those lines just come out from nowhere, and that can be
Yeah.
greatest inspiration. I guess hopping on that and your come on, man, like when did you realize you could do all those different voices? Because especially when you mentioned that it was actually you doing all of them, I was really shocked.
So 2 years ago was the first time I made a skit with this format. I think um it was like POV, the all hands, the CEO is like very transparent or something. And for that one, I didn't really try to do a lot of voices. I think for the one after that, it was like POV, you start talking about sports on the call. That was the first one where I was like, I have like I wanted to show this dynamic of like there's a manager character, and so I just used a very nasally Midwest voice for that. And then I'm like, okay, we're gonna have the haters in the background, like, oh man. And then like and I'm like, okay, let me throw in like my friend group's signature thing. Come on, man. And then I have that like Hispanic character who's just like, man, bro's whole personality or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like for that there was like a few voices, and then a couple videos later, I'm like, oh, I got to introduce like this other one because there's always like this broy guy, and then there's always this Indian guy, and then like one thing led to another, and I'm like, I think I have a cast now. So then that was when I decided a few months ago to formalize like their names, and that's when I did the team intros one, and that was the same one with the big Kamal Mang punchline, and I feel like that one really like made me more recognizable and more of a cult following after that. Um but yeah, as far as like knowing I could do the voices, I never really thought of I just started doing them, and then I feel like I'm getting better at them over time too. And now like when I'm in conversation with my friends, I'm like doing the voices to like make fun of coworkers or friends or whatever, and it's like I guess I'm a voice actor now. I don't know. It's so funny when you're a creator. Like there's so many skills that you use in this stuff, whether it's video or voice acting or acting or whatever, and like you just kind of realize talents you didn't even know you had. I don't know if that's been your experience at all, but yeah,
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's hilarious the way you explain it. And especially I feel like when you have this sort of cast of characters, the cult following is even more strong, right? Like I've read some of your comments talking about like the Strokify cinematic universe, or like we're even applying to just a bunch of random text skits that you do in like your
yeah,
rooms. Like, but that's the ability that I guess you
yeah.
have
I
that you're
mean,
able to relate. Yeah.
that's also something I pride myself on, is like doing more with less. Like I purposefully do not want to give any of these characters a face. I purposefully want to do them all from here in my room, and like my whole experiment is like, how big can I get this by just using my iPhone, just using voices? Like I want to like prove that like I can like get people really like hooked and almost like getting emotional about these characters when it's all literally just me sitting here. Because like the thing is, that's kind of what working remote is like. It's like you're just here in your room, but like you get to connect with your coworkers a lot, especially in startups, and like, but it's all just on a laptop. So I'm trying to like convey that a little bit.
Yeah, I guess actually now that you mention it, that is sort of the perfect way that you convey those like all those POV like on a call. it's like it really is just like us in our like t-shirts in our living rooms, just like having
Yeah.
that shared experience. I guess you really hit the nail on the head there. So yeah, and I guess sort of tagging along on that. Obviously, your skits have evolved over time. Right now, you have this sort of cinematic universe that is doing really well. But you also had your like LinkedIn experiment, posting sort of kind of troll content there, and like making now more vulnerable, longer form uh, videos on YouTube, just sort of talking about your different experiences. I guess in sort of like over the course of a year or in a year's time, where do you see your content evolving to?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, right now, 2024 is the year that I've been like, I need to just really give this my all. And so right now, I think like Strokify Cinematic Universe, I'm running with that. Like, I want to keep that going. I have like a lot of plot development in store. And the only thing I see changing with that is maybe I transition it to YouTube and then I just distribute it to shorts. So, like, just like higher quality and maybe even a little longer. That's the only thing I really see changing with that. Um, it's really just going to be doing stuff on top of that. So I think I want to build this YouTube community. Right now, I'm starting with kind of like talky videos just to build the community, but I do want to like scale that up a little bit and start doing more higher produced comedy or like just more fun, creative stuff. So I think YouTube will be my place for that. And then other than pure video, like LinkedIn, like that was just like I felt like I needed to start establishing a presence on there just because that's where a lot of my people are. But obviously, that platform has limits of its own, especially just because it's like a very work oriented place. I realized I can't be posting all my videos on there. So, because people just straight up won't like it or comment, because their coworkers are on there. But LinkedIn, I'll probably always use to just promote myself. I got a newsletter going now. Written content is very much something I enjoy, and I feel like I want to get better at it. And like the main reason is I feel like 5, 10 years from now, I want to like write books. Like that would be like a dream of mine. So the more I can build up the written audience, I think will really help with that. Um, and then other than that, I mean, I have definitely thought about doing some like paid exclusive content too. Like I think working in tech, I offer a lot of value and insight. So I think I might start, TikTok has those paid series. Like I might do like a very quick and informal thing where it's like almost like I wouldn't call it a course, but it's kind of like me talking about like if you're interviewing at startups, how do you suss out if it's like not a good one to work for, or things like that. Like, stuff like that where I can monetize a little more, but also offer a lot of value. Um, but yeah, I think like TLDR is like, I think other than just finding other ways to monetize and stuff, like it'll just be YouTube is like my goal. Hopefully 1 year from now, that's my main focus. So yeah.
Sounds like a pretty good product roadmap for
Yeah. Yeah. And then also Strokify, like I want to keep doing fun gags with that. Like I just created an Insta for it. I haven't like published it yet, but I think I might try to make an Insta for that and post memes on there. Keep finding ways to brand that and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And
Yeah.
I guess just taking a sort of step back and just for context,
Yeah.
this podcast of mine, I called it the 1.01 podcast because I really enjoy that concept of getting 1% better from James Clear's Atomic Habits. So I
Okay.
guess throughout your career and now creating content, obviously getting better every single day. Maybe what are some of the key habits that you've developed and you really stick to in your day to day?
Yeah, I mean, so outside of just pure work and content stuff, like exercise is very important to me and good diet's very important to me. I think those things really help me with just mental clarity because now I'm busy, I work full time. I do content basically part time now. So, I need the mental clarity to do all of that. And then other than that, I think good habits wise, I think doing content or any side hustle or startup or whatever, like it will people say the same thing about like working out or trying to bodybuild or whatever, where like there's going to be days where you just don't want to do it, you know? Like I would say like back in February, March, April, I was on this high where I'm like, I just want to do this every day, all day. And then like I think May and even a little bit of June, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. You know, I'm like not so sure. Maybe I'm not whatever. You know, I'm having these doubts or I just don't feel like it. But similar to exercise, you gotta like just set a block time and just sit down at the computer and like what I started doing is I use Notion and I like create tasks for everything now. And I think like getting myself organized and forcing myself to sit down and setting goals and deadlines for myself has helped me manage my time, not overwork myself, and also just stay productive and stay relevant on the platforms, you know? So I think like maybe it's not like a habit, but just kind of forcing myself to sit down and set aside time for this stuff even when I don't feel like it, I think has really helped keep me relevant, I guess. So um yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you like being transparent in the sense that, yeah, like even though obviously there's a high when videos do well and gain following, but being able to do it on even on the days you don't feel like doing it, that's sort of what gets you in that position.
Mhm.
I guess also
Yeah.
creating tickets and closing your own tickets for your own
Yeah. Yeah,
life
exactly.
makes sense.
One more thing is like we discussed about like Theta Tau, but like community is really important. I try to always be meeting up with other creators, founders, even like, even if they're not a content creator, someone who's like building something, you know, I think it's really important to continually, even if it's just, it doesn't have to be going to big events. It can even just be getting coffee or like a drink with someone who does things like this. I think one, just feeling like I have some support, two, learning about their journey and how they have built their stuff, the challenges they've faced. I think knowing there's people in your corner and people you can lean on has made it that much more encouraging. And then those people cheer you on too and make you want to continue. So, building a community for yourself is super important as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I guess that's also part of my appreciation for getting to interview different creators like you. That I also feel more energized and motivated in my own different pursuits. But I guess to respect your time and to sort of wrap up here, I wanted to take a step back for a more like meta question. One of my favorite questions from a different podcast is, what's the nicest thing someone's ever done for you? And it doesn't necessarily have to be career related. It could be, maybe your car broke down, someone helped you push you outside the street, or maybe it could be career related, like your manager giving you like a lot of mentorship on at an early job. But I'm curious for you, what comes to mind?
Yeah, there's definitely a few that I could think of. Um, I would say like, you know, like when you mentioned like manager stuff, like current employer, current manager, like they're very supportive of all this stuff I'm doing. And if it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would have been able to take it to the next level like I'm trying to do right now. So that's really great. Um, some of the people in my community I'm building now are like really great. Like one individual just offered to be the mod of my Discord. It sounds really small, but like knowing that there's people who want to take things off my plate and help me make this better is really amazing. I signed with an agency a few months ago and they do me so many favors as far as just like, yeah, I mean, getting me revenue and doing negotiation and just teeing me up for success and motivating me to keep doing more. My parents are super, super supportive. Like they just like watch all the videos, they share them with their friends. Um, they've been so key to making me want to do this stuff more. And then my friends as well in that regard, they're super, super supportive. Yeah, I guess that's not like the one superlative nice thing someone's ever done, but um, I think this journey has started to make me more appreciative of like the little things that people have been doing for me to keep me going and keep me on this journey that's been such a pleasure to be on. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And definitely and I'll be staying tuned as you continue this journey and hopefully get a lot of laughs along the way.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, I appreciate the time, Varun.